This meditation is a picnic with Jesus. Feeding of the 5,000. Another moment when Jesus is out there with his apostles, surprising them, doing things that seem pretty normal, but end up not being normal at all. And this passage brings to light so much about his relationship with his followers, with his disciples, with those who are willing to serve him, those who are willing to work alongside him. And another repetition of the goodness that pours out of Christ in abundance, in excess. So we contemplate to what degree he wants us to share in that and how he wants us to be the same way. Those two things together, like his working with us or us working with him, and his overabundant goodness, they join together. St. Augustine says, "What do we love? A good that words cannot describe, a good that is forever giving, a good that is the creator of all good. Delight in him, from whom you have received everything that delights you." I haven't printed off the sheet of quotations yet, so you'll get that later on if you want the whole thing. What do we love? A good that words cannot describe, a good that is forever giving, a good that is the creator of all good. Delight in him, from whom you have received everything that delights you. I discovered the joy and the necessity of giving in abundance. In my first year out on ministry in Dallas, I was sent to the Highland School, which is one of our wonderful private schools, and a very beautiful place with a great spirit. But there had been a few years of difficulties with behavior in the high school students, and I was put in charge of the missions, which meant that I had the blessing and challenge of organizing the Holy Week missions that year. And it had been a tradition to have Holy Week missions for the high school students. But there were a lot of other traditions associated with the Holy Week missions, such as guys and girls sneaking into each other's dorms at night, people bringing alcohol in missions, right? So there was a lot of history, and I was told my job was to make sure none of that ever happened again, right? Which is kind of sad, a sad way to begin an awesome ministry like that, because it puts you in mode of disciplinarian or strict rule maker. So anyway, we got these missions organized. I had a lot of help from a consecrated woman, Melanie Zoll from Germany, who just had this incredible ability to put together practical details and stuff. So I think she did most of the work. But anyway, we did a really great mission. We had a band that played at the beginning and at the adoration moments. I got a lot of advice from some people I know from Mexico, who organized one of the spots where mega missions happened down in Mexico. That was very helpful as well. So anyway, we still had to deal with this problem of the discipline. So the seniors, the boys who were in their 12th grade, decided, well, they had this tradition of all of them would go into the dorm areas were divided up by rooms, where like 6 or 5 people would sleep in one room, and they would take a whole bunch of beds and put them all in one room, and all of them sleep on this one big mega bed, right? So I was like, that sounds suspicious. We're gonna, crack down on that one. And we assigned everybody like a team, and they had to be in rooms by their teams, and the teams were mixed and handpicked so that there wouldn't be any misbehavior. If you put some troublemakers with a bunch of good kids, it kind of balances out, right? The good kids aren't going to let any of that stuff happen, right? So, but there was this huge retaliation. they got really mad, and we had a mission corps guy there with us that year, and they were all like complaining to him and bad mouthing the priest. Father Adam doesn't know what he's doing here. He's never been here before. He's new here. He doesn't know. This is our tradition. This is what we always do. And there's really had a really negative spirit about it, right? Oh, this was the mission where Zach Lalo came with us. Brother Zach, who's a candidate now. He didn't sign up on time, and we made a special exception. I arranged with his mom, opened up the registration again just for him. His sister probably didn't come. It's just for him, and he got to go, and it was a huge experience for him. He'll tell about that when he gives his vocation story about those missions. It's pretty awesome. So, anyway, Zach was not one of the bad kids who was complaining. Anyway, we managed to convince everybody to kind of follow the rules, and it worked out pretty well. Everyone slept where they were supposed to sleep. We one of the husbands of one of the teachers at the school, who's like an ex-military guy, he like would patrol the grounds at night, so that like he stayed up all night just patrolling the grounds. It was really funny. Anyway, the point of the story is that on Good Friday they also had this crazy tradition that the previous chaplain would take the boys out after midnight on Good Friday, so now that it was Holy Saturday, to Whataburger to get hamburgers, right, in the middle of the night, because he couldn't eat on Friday and you couldn't eat meat, and then you treat them, and I was like, oh man, I don't think they deserve to go out to Whataburger, but we decided to surprise them anyways, and we told them, you guys are all supposed to meet us after the evening prayer activity, which ended at like 11:30 p.m. Everybody meet in this one building, which is one of the dorms. They were divided up into different dorm buildings. Everyone meet in this building. So the prayer time ends, they all go there. The other adults are in on it, so they're all like telling them to go there and making sure everyone shows up. And then I sent one of the dads to go to Whataburger and pick up hamburgers for everybody, and bring them back in Whataburger bags. So he went and got them. And the kids were all sitting in there thinking that they were in big trouble because of their behavior. They thought that I was just going to come in and like yell at them, And instead, I walked in with these big bags with orange stripes on them, And they're all like, "Whoa!" It was a huge celebration, And look, we got a vocation out of it. Amazing. But it was a good lesson for me, the importance of not only being strict, but also being generous. Whenever you're generous in some way, you reveal the heart of God, because like in this gospel we're going to meditate on, that's the heart of Christ, generosity, overflowing generosity. Unfortunately, we can't give them so many hamburgers that there are leftovers and stuff, but there's never leftovers when there's teenagers around anyways, so but Christ does. Christ gives with so much abundance. I have another story of generosity and overabundance. When I was in theology one year, they were looking for a brother to accompany a priest traveling in Germany who's visiting German benefactors, so in Bavaria. And I got asked if I would go, and I said yes. I don't speak German, I play the hammer dulcimer, this crazy little instrument with strings that you hit with little hammers. So I took that along, and people liked it. They liked the music, but it was awkward. The good thing was that Father would tell the same jokes and the same stories all the time. So repetition helps you to learn. So I got to understanding much more German just from hearing him tell the same stories. But we went to visit this one family in this little wee town, in a little wee house. It looked like a little farmhouse kind of, and they had like animals in the back, and it was very kind of natural looking, wooden walls, nice wooden table, but nothing fancy at all. It was kind of hard to believe that they were really benefactors. And we just sat down and talked, like usually people would bring out like a snack or something, or drinks, or offer you something. And maybe they gave us a glass of water, I don't remember, but we just sat down at the table and we were just talking. I wasn't talking. But it was a Friday, so at one point they're like, "Oh, we did prepare something for you." And we're like, "Oh, okay." It wasn't really like we weren't there for a meal anyways, so we weren't expecting anything really special. And they went back into the room and brought out these two huge platters of like the most expensive, exquisite fish that you could imagine in the fanciest restaurant. There was like caviar on there, and like set them down on the table. He was like, "Oh, we know it's not dinner time, but just take whatever you like, right?" And we were both like, sure." We could not believe it. It was incredible. And then afterwards, it was really funny joking about it because it was the biggest surprise ever. This poor little family, and how much they were. I mean, maybe they weren't as poor as they seemed, but how willing they were to be generous with us, to go all out because these two priests, a priest and a brother, were visiting them, right? I don't even know where they got all that stuff, but it was like driven to the city or something. No, but it was an incredible show of overflowing generosity. So we're going to meditate on Mark 6:30-44, which is the feeding of the 5,000. And I like this passage from Mark because it includes the part where the apostles gather around Jesus. They brought to him the news of all they had done and taught. I guess they've been out there working and doing his work. And he says to them, "Come with me privately to a solitary place and let us rest for a while." So then they go there, and the people hear where they're going. They run on foot. Jesus gets ashore and sees the large crowd. And he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. So again, Jesus going from one thing to the next and not stopping. And being interrupted from his break, from his vacation, and he still doesn't stop. And then he teaches them until the hour was late. And then they've got the problem that they haven't fed them yet. Give them something to eat. You give them something to eat. And then they're like, "We don't have enough money. It would cost us 200 denarii to buy them everything." And he says, "Go see how much you have." And after checking, they said, "We've got 5 loaves and 2 fish. And then Jesus tells the people to sit down in the grass. And he looks up to heaven. He says a blessing and broke the loaves. And then he gave them to the disciples to set before the people. And he divided the 2 fish among them all. And they all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 baskets full of broken pieces of bread and fish. And there were 5,000 men who had eaten the loaves, not counting women and children. Some people asked me, how many people were at Captivenia last week? I said 2, not counting women and children. Just 2 priests, There were a few other men there as well. But so Jesus and this great miracle of the loaves, we want to contemplate it slowly and go through it, imagining all of the different parts of it again. I think by now you should be really good at it. You can start with that beginning scene. It's time for a break. Everyone's tired. You can imagine yourself on the boat with them, having a journey. It's probably kind of like going to vacation. It's fun. They're enjoying their time together. They're so excited. And you're excited to be with Jesus. To be with Jesus on a rest. It's one of those moments where you're like, where is the special ones who don't just get to stand in a crowd and listen to him or see him every once in a while, but we get to see him when he's on break, when he's on vacation. And then watch the people along the shore running, going from little town to town. The road is busy. There's lots of people traveling to meet them on the other side of the lake. There's 2 things happening at once, Disciples having a little fun, having a little party. Maybe they even had a little snack, Maybe there should have been 10 loaves, but they ate 5 of them on the boat. I don't know. But and then imagine the scene slowly as Jesus gets off the boat, and look at his face and his eyes. What is his expression? He's looking at those crowds. big crowd of people, like World Youth Day. Yeah. People all along the beach looking, crowding, trying to get close to him. And then he begins to teach them again. Now maybe it's a good idea to look at the disciples and be like, how do they feel? The party, we were gonna have a break. We were gonna have a vacation together. Jesus, can't you just send them away? Can you just say no? Can't we just get back on the boat and sail somewhere else? Maybe they're frustrated, ruining our vacation. These lousy people. And yet no one can not marvel at how he cares about each one of them, how lovingly he teaches them. The look on Jesus' face as he teaches them. He cares. And the afternoon goes by. Slowly, the sun is getting low. It's golden hour. Everyone's taking out their phones to take selfies. People are absorbing his teaching. They can't get enough of it. They're all still mesmerized. They're all still caught up in everything he has to say. And he finally sounds like he's wrapping it up. And you and the apostles are starting to think, oh boy, finally we're going to get to rest. But then somebody realizes that they're all really hungry and says to Jesus, should we send them away? Should we send them away to get food? I think the disciples are proposing what will give them their free time. And this is a reality in our lives. If we're called to be followers of Christ, if we're called to be his apostles and his priests, reality that sometimes the people we serve are going to be frustrating. Sometimes it's going to be a burden. We already experience it in community life, that our brothers are a burden sometimes. And the point here is to get to know Jesus, to get to know him. Remember, St. Ignatius? To know him more, to be able to love him more, to be able to follow him more closely. So to know him. What is behind his attitude here? That attitude of generosity, that heart, about living for the people, for whom he came. This is the reason I came here. If those words could echo in our hearts whenever we're annoyed with somebody, or whenever we're tired of our work, or when it gets to be a burden for us, to be able to say, this is the reason I came here. It's the reason I came to these doors of the novitiate a long time ago and put on a white shirt and a black tie one day. This is the reason I stayed, so that I could serve, so that I could give to them. That's the heart of Christ. Being ready to change your plans for the sake of the flock. But it's not just that, it's also he could probably have fed them miraculously by himself. And in this passage and all the passages where he feeds people, he does it through his apostles. There's a theology behind that. There's a theology behind that. I'm sure it's related to the Eucharist and to the church being the distributors of the Eucharist. But it's also just in general, our collaboration with Christ. Everything that we have to give them, our words, our time, our energy, follows this dynamic. Christ asks us to give. We have very little to give. We take it to him, he blesses it, he breaks it, he gives it back to us, and he asks us to give what we gave to him, what he gave back to us. There's a dynamic there that can apply to every area of our life where we're called to serve and where we're called to give to the flock. So you can slowly contemplate that scene where he asks them how many loaves they have. When they have little to give, Jesus loves it. He loves it. He loves when we are able to recognize our littleness, when we're able to recognize our insufficiency. when the only way that we're able to work is by doing it with him, because it brings us into the truth. It brings us out of the lie of our self-sufficiency, the lie of our believing that we've got enough and that we can do this, and into the truth that everything hinges on Christ. Remember that comment last night? The whole of time and history and my whole destiny, my whole life hinges on him and his identity. And he wants us to live in that truth. Lord, I can't give to the people if I don't first give you what I have and let you multiply it. So that implies this humility of not thinking it's all about me, and recognizing the truth that it's all about Christ. It's all about him. He's the center of my universe. He is the one who made everything. You know, even when I do have enough to give people, like even when I've purchased enough hamburgers for the ravenous teenagers, it's still all a gift from him. And there's still nothing that doesn't come from him and his goodness. Littleness and humility. It's a great model for how we're supposed to work with him, that he gives it back to us to distribute, to give to the people. I've still got to put my effort. You know, even if Christ is the one doing the miracle, even if Christ is the one who's going to change people's hearts, I've still got to speak. I've still got to prepare. You know, it's a good motive for our formation. I've still got to give him my 5 loaves. I've still got to like carry the basket around and give it to people. You know, it's like it's a collaboration. It's between his grace and our work. It's not all work, and it definitely doesn't depend on us, the final result, but he needs it. He chooses to need it. He chooses to work through us. And then finally, the part of this gospel where they're satisfied. They're satisfied. Jesus wants satisfaction. He wants leftovers. He wants us to have extra in our life. You know, my healing story, that testimony I gave about the struggle I had with being afraid that I was going to be lacking in the love people would give me, or that someone else would steal love or remove it from me, people would abandon me, right? It was a falsely founded fear. There was no grounds to it. And in reality, when I look at my life, I see that Christ has filled it with an abundance of all of the things that I was afraid of losing. Like, there's so much love and goodness that I've received from others. There's absolutely no reason to be afraid. And yet there was this fear. So Christ wants that abundance. He wants us to have an abundance of all the good things that we need in order to be happy and healthy and holy. So you start out with having nothing to give, and that truth and humility of recognizing that I have nothing. But with Christ, we have an abundance to give. God willing, you'll discover that and get on apostolate, start doing more ministry. You know, like that experience I had when I started internship. It was like, wow, my formation actually worked. I've got a lot of abundance to give now. And it's all coming from him. It's all thanks to him. So here's where I want to invite you again to do that last step, and you can do it throughout the whole thing, or you can stop at whatever point of the story you want, but that step of pausing with Jesus and just spending time adoring him, spending time loving him, spending time just chatting with him about it. You know, maybe the feeding of these thousands of people took a long time, and there was plenty of time to sit down beside Jesus and just say, you know, you amaze me. You're awesome, and your generosity, help me to be like that, to have that little dialogue with him sitting on the hillside in the grass. Kick off your sandals and just be with Christ.